Kayla Taylor.
And I'm Annaliese Rodriguez.
And we're reporting live for Fox 13 News.
14 years ago, on the morning of September 11, 2001, 19 Arab terrorists hijacked 4 airlines heading from East Coast airports to California. In a series of coordinate strikes, the hijackers crashed 2 of the jets into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, and a 3rd into the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C. The 4th plane crashed in an empty field in Pennsylvania.
The planes, loaded with fuel, became destructive missiles when they crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The explosions and fire weakened the damaged skyscrapers, causing them to crumble to the ground less than 2 hours after impact.
The toll in human lives was great. About 3,000 people died in these attacks. All passengers on the 4 planes were killed, as well as workers and visitors in the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The dead included more than 340 New York City firefighters and 60 police officers, who rushed to the scene to help and were buried in the rubble when the skyscrapers collapsed.
Immediately after September 11th, the United States called for an international effort to combat terrorist groups. President George W. Bush declared, "The battle will take time and resolve, but make no mistake about it, we will win."
As a first step in this battle, the U.S. government organized a massive effort to identify those responsible for the attacks. Officials concluded Osama bin Laden directed the terrorists. The effort led the United States to begin military action against Afghanistan.
In May of 2011, American soldiers killed al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden at his compound in Pakistan. Intelligence officials believe bin Laden was responsible for many deadly acts of terrorism, including the 1998 bombings of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, and the September 11, 2001 attacks on the Pentagon and the World Trade Center. He had been on the FBI's most wanted list for more than a decade.
After 9/11, the federal government warned Americans that additional terrorist attacks were likely. It then took action to prevent such attacks. The Department of Homeland Security was created in 2002 to coordinate national effort against terrorism. Anti-terrorism measures included a search for terrorists in the United States and the passage of anti-terrorist laws.
One of the anti-terrorism laws, known as the U.S. Patriot Act, allowed the government to
detain foreigners suspected for terrorism for 7 days without charging them with a crime,
tap all phones used by suspects and monitor their email and internet use,
make search warrants valid across states,
order U.S. banks to investigate sources of large foreign accounts,
and prosecute terrorist crimes without any time restrictions or limitations.
People were critical of the USA Patriot Act because they felt that detaining these men under these circumstances was unfair to the innocent and violated their civil rights. Aviation security was increased after 9/11. The FAA ordered airlines to put bars on doors, and National Guard troops began to guard airports.
Trained security officers, sky marshals, were put on the planes, and the Aviation and Transportation Security Act was passed.
And now here's a live interview with Isabel Anderson regarding her experience in the World Trade Center on 9/11. Good morning, Isabel. How did your day start on September 11, 2001?
Good morning, Kayla. I woke up on September 11th, a beautiful fall day, showered and dressed and headed for work. I worked on the 84th floor in the South Tower. I was at my desk at around 7 a.m., and we started our normal trading process by filling the screens with markets, and that's how my day began.
What made you realize that you needed to leave the tower?
Honestly, I didn't realize at all. My friend Karen, who sat right by me, said, "Iz, grab your bag." That was a bomb. Then Jose directed us to the innermost stairwell of the building, and that's when I heard the buzz going around that a helicopter hit the World Trade Center.
How did the people around you react?
To my surprise, once we hit the deck level and we were outside, cops and firemen told us to run and to not look back. But outside, people were standing and staring at the buildings, completely frozen. The only people running were the World Trade Center employees.
I think that's enough for now. We don't want to make this any harder on you. Thank you for your time, Isabel.
It's my pleasure.
That was a heartbreaking story. And to think that we were both too young to remember the tragic day.
Now we're back to discuss what terrorism is and its effects on the world.
Terrorism is the use of violence against people or property to force change in societies or governments.
Kayla, do you know what weapons terrorists use?
Terrorists often use bombs and bullets. some terrorist groups have used biological and chemical weapons.
Terrorism isn't only a problem in the United States, it's a problem all around the world. Southeast of the U.S., civil unrest and regional wars caused most of terrorist attacks in Africa. In 1972, terrorists struck the Summer Olympic Games in Munich, Germany.
Cult members released a deadly nerve gas in the Tokyo subway in 1995. The Irish Republican Army, the IRA, engaged in terrorist attacks against Britain because it opposed British control of Northern Ireland. Before 9/11, many Americans thought that terrorism was something that happened in other countries. After 9/11, many Americans became afraid that terrorist attacks could happen to them.
Another form of terrorism is cyber-terrorism. Cyber-terrorism involves politically motivated attacks on information systems such as hacking into computer networks or spreading computer viruses.
With this in mind, I'm sure we can all agree that terrorism has played a huge role in the last few decades. We will not only strive to rid our country of terrorism, but to rid the world of it.
That's a good point, Kayla. I think we can all agree that we need to learn from our mistakes and not repeat the past.
This has been Annaliese and Kayla on Fox 13 News.
Thank you, Tampa Bay.
Oh my gosh, I was the wrong page.
Kayla, do you know what weapons terrorists use?
Terrorists often use bombs and bullets. Some terrorist groups have... What are you laughing at?
I was going to just yell out, guns!
Hold on, let me drink my coffee.
Story, Isabel, and to think that we were both too young to remember such a tragic day.
Now we're back to discuss what terrorism is and the effects on the war. The world. I can't English! Okay, alright. Now we're back to discuss what terrorism is and the effects on the world.
Terrorism is the use of violence against people or property to force change in societies or governments.
Kayla, do you know what weapons terrorists use?
Guns!
Isabella, it's Isabel!
Who's this Isabella chick? Why is she in our newscast? Like she wasn't invited.